WWE Survivor Series 2021 match card and predictions for you now here on SCW. Before I can give you the predictions though, you need a match card, so without further ado, here it is. Now, it's no secret that WWE haven't really put as much focus as they usually would on this year's Survivor Series. Yes, we've had the WWE draft, we've had Crown Jewel, and then after Crown Jewel, WWE kind of want to establish the new rosters that we have for Raw and SmackDown. Rather than doing continuous invasions and much focus on Survivor Series, they've kind of focused on what each show is going to represent going forward. And do you know what? In some places for a pay-per-view like this where it's Raw versus SmackDown, yes, it's taken away a little bit, but some of those storylines can work quite nicely into this Survivor Series pay-per-view, which is why I'm going to focus on the positives on this pay-per-view, because first off, you've seen the match card just there. I think it's a stacked looking show. I think that some of these matches are going to be fantastic to watch, whether you're in the Barclays Centre, whether you're watching at home. I think the bums could be taking off seats here for some of the matches we've got on this show. And looking at, like we said, some of the stories that have gone into this, I don't think WWE have meant this, but with the Bloodline sort of attacking the New Day on SmackDown, and with King Woods being taken down, Kofi being written off TV for the time being, well, Big E's on Raw, and he's going to want to get his retribution on Roman Reigns, and there has been a small mention of that. Kevin Owens, with his sort of storyline direction since going to Raw, he's now gone and turned heel. Is he going to be trustworthy for the Raw team? Could he turn on the entire Raw team? Could he just be that heel? Is he going to lie? Could he be trusted by any of the other teammates? It's going to be interesting to see how that stuff's going to play into the storylines. But without further ado, let's go match by match. I'm going to give my prediction, and like I say, I'm going to focus on the positives of this rather than the negatives, and we can sort of focus on some of the negatives of Survivor Series towards the end of this video and how it can be improved going forward. So let's start off with the mid-card championships against one another. We've got Raw side Damien Priest, the United States champion, going against the Intercontinental champion of SmackDown, Shinsuke Nakamura. I wish I could do that in a Rick Boogs, but unfortunately I'm just not that good at that. But that should be a really fun match to watch. I'm really excited to see what these two could bring to the table. Nakamura hasn't done so much as Intercontinental champion, but certainly that entrance is always fun to watch, so I'm not going to complain. Damien Priest, on the other hand, he's got new entrance music. He's kind of got more of an edgier side to him in recent sort of weeks on WWE, so I'm interested to see what that's going to bring going into Survivor Series. Is Priest going to play more of a heel in this match of the two, or is he going to be sort of the babyface that's just going to be complete no nonsense? As for a prediction and as a result, I can't see past Damien Priest. He's had a fantastic year on Raw since joining at the start of the calendar year. Shinsuke Nakamura has taken some falls on SmackDown recently, including a tag team match against the Los Lotharios just this past week on SmackDown. So I think that we can look no further than Damien Priest picking up the W in this match. So I'm going to go 1-0 to Monday Night Raw. Next, I'm going to go what I think is probably the least predictable match of the entire card. It's the tag team champions against one another. On the Raw side, we've got Randy Orton and Riddle, RK Bro, taking on Jimmy and Jay, the Usos of SmackDown, of course, also part of the Bloodline. And that's what I think could be a big omen for the entire evening. Could Roman Reigns put the pressure on the Usos' shoulders, the fact that the Usos need to pick up the victory? Yes, you could say perhaps for SmackDown, but more importantly for Roman, for giving him momentum later in the evening to show the family are dominant for the Bloodline that this should be done for. Now, of course, the Usos were on Raw this past week, of course, attacking Big E. This led to a tag team match with Riddle making the save. Then it was a six-man tag team match when Randy Orton got involved, and the Usos had Seth Rollins on their side. What was interesting was that actually Seth Rollins picked up the victory over Riddle. So sometimes I like to look at the 50-50 booking of WWE, which made me think RK Bro would potentially pick up the victory. But then RK Bro did actually get an attack on the Usos and did get the upper hand going into the pay-per-view. So for that reason, I'm going to go for the Usos to pick up the victory. I honestly think this one could go either way, but one thing that makes me stick with the Usos as a prediction as well, I look at Randy Orton and Riddle on Raw. Riddle is not really doing things that Randy is telling him to do. Occasionally he's sticking his nose where he doesn't need to, and he's getting himself beaten up at the cause of it. Now, to go into this pay-per-view, if he was to stick with what Randy Orton says, then potentially you could see RK Bro getting the victory. But if he was to make the same mistakes again, could the cracks start to appear and we could start building towards Riddle and Randy Orton for WrestleMania? It does feel like it could be just a little bit too soon at this point, but certainly that first defeat here, with them still being Raw Tag Team Champions, could just start that storyline off, even if it's slow and steady going towards the Royal Rumble. So for that reason, I still stick with the Usos, and I do believe, had these two teams been on the same show after the draft, I do think this could have been the tag team that would have taken those tag team titles off of RK Bro. But one thing is for sure, this is going to be a fun match regardless. I do think it has match of the night potential, and I do think it's the biggest match that WWE can do in tag team wrestling in the company right now. There are no two better tag teams on a better role right now, so this to me feels like a big time deal. So I'm going to be a big advocate of promoting, saying this match is something definitely very positive about the Survivor Series this year, even though there has been kind of a lack of build. But final prediction, I do say the Usos will pick up the victory, so I'm going to go for Raw 1, SmackDown 1 at this point. Next, let's talk about the Women's Championship, shall we? The Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch taking on the SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. Oh, it was also different a few weeks ago, and definitely a questionable start to the build to this match going at Survivor Series, where they had to hand over the championships, where things felt like it went a bit off script if you believe the dirt sheets, and of course, yeah, there was meant to be arguments backstage, but they've been kept apart for the last couple of weeks, but they've both had some rumblings now, the past promos for SmackDown and Raw. I think those promos have been decent. I particularly enjoyed Becky Lynch's promo last night on Raw, sort of saying how she's made Charlotte even hate herself at this point, where Becky Lynch didn't want to be sort of, in the background. She wanted to be the one to take the spotlight. And I do think these two, they have great chemistry in the ring. There's no denying that. Have we been worked to this point? That's certainly a question that can be asked. If you go back to the Evolution match that these two had in 2018, and they've had other matches in the past as well, they've always had some stellar matches. So I think this one could be another one of those classics between these two ladies. And right now, both of them seem like they are the top of their divisions for their show. No one else has been able to match them at this particular point. Becky Lynch, since coming back, has been unstoppable. Charlotte now has been, a women's champion since July time as well. So both of them have been top of their divisions. It's going to be fun to watch them go one-on-one, but it comes down now to the all-important prediction. I think Becky Lynch is picking up the victory. I will stick with that. The one thing I'm slightly worried about is that we'll get a repeat of what we happened with Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey back at Survivor Series 2018, where we have a screwy DQ style finish. But of course, at that point, Flair and Rousey were in the ring together at WrestleMania 35 with Becky Lynch. So I don't think we're going to get a repeat of these two after this. This will be one and done. So I'm hoping that we're going to get an actual finish to this match. And if we do get that actual finish, I do predict that Becky Lynch will take home the victory. So for that reason there, we're going to go for Raw 2, SmackDown 1. Next, let's talk about the WWE Champion of Big E of Monday Night Raw against the Universal Champion Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief of SmackDown. Now, like I said earlier on in this video, sort of in a weird way, WWE have actually booked this okay without actually meaning to book this okay. The storyline really has been Roman Reigns and King Woods on SmackDown, but of course Big E was a part of the New Day and still is part of the New Day, even though he's on a different show right now. So he has a problem with the idea of how Roman Reigns and the Bloodline have been treating Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. So there was reference made to it this week on Raw. So I think that there is a little bit something there for these two to fight each other at Survivor Series. And hopefully, between these two, it's a fresh match. It's something we haven't seen before. I think it's going to be an outstanding encounter. And for Big E, this is probably, this is going to be the main event of the show, I would imagine, with Roman Reigns being a part of it. This is going to be a big time deal then for Big E as well. First pay-per-view main event as WWE Champion. So this is a really, really big deal. And yeah, I hope it's all going to go well with this. I can see it going at least 20-25 minutes this encounter. But to give a prediction, you can't bet against Roman Reigns, can you? The Tribal Chief has been on a roll for the longest time now. This gimmick isn't getting tired, it isn't getting boring, and the fact is that we keep lining up superstars and Roman Reigns finds a way to pick up the victory. Will we see outside involvement from the Usos? Perhaps maybe Xavier Woods. King Woods, of course, is in the show as well. Kofi has been written off. Could he return at Survivor Series to get involved in this? Time will tell. We'll have to wait and see. That certainly could be a dynamic that could be added to this match. But one thing is for sure, I'm not betting against the head of the table. So Roman Reigns to pick up the victory. So that means it's Raw 2, SmackDown 2. Let's move on then to these traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination matches. So on the Raw side, we've got Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, one half of the women's tag team champions in Rhea Ripley. We've got Queen Zelina and Carmella And on the SmackDown side, we've got Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Natalya, and a mystery person who has not been announced at the time of recording. So that is the interesting part to go with, and I kind of hope that WWE leaves it now to the pay-per-view. It just adds a bit of mystery and a bit of interest. To give it away so close to the pay-per-view now, it just feels a bit throwaway, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get the announcement on SmackDown. Potential people that could fill that spot, I mean, of course, Sonya Deville has been very heavy and hands-on with this SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team. Could you think that she's the most suitable for the job? She's been rumoured to be wanting to get back into the ring soon. Naomi potentially could qualify if she was to actually, and be the only one that would have to qualify as well. Probably something that we should mention. No qualifying matches at all. All these teams were just put together and then little changes were made. And of course, Aaliyah was supposed to have this spot at the start. She won a match on SmackDown, got the help from Naomi, and then was pulled from the match. Your guess is as good as mine why they did that. That was a bit of random booking from WWE. But it also makes sense why Naomi is not in this spot, because Sonya Deville doesn't think she's worthy of being on SmackDown, even if she was to go for a qualifying match here. Sonya has made sure that Naomi has not won matches. Even when she's picked up the W, she's had to go back in and then she'd lose afterwards. So I don't think Naomi would fill this spot. Toni Storm could be a potential. She wants to go for the SmackDown Women's Championship, so there is certainly a potential that she could fill that spot, and I'd be quite happy to see Toni Storm there. But what if we would get someone that's ready to return to competition? Perhaps someone like Asuka, maybe Alexa Bliss. Yes, both I think are meant to be on Raw, but neither have been on TV since the draft has taken shape, so WWE could just easily change plans and put them on SmackDown. There's no reason why they couldn't do that. So that's certainly a few names that could be mentioned there. I'm going to go with Toni Storm just because I think it's the safe bet at this stage. But it'll be interesting to see what will go down and who will film this spot. I think Asuka would be a fun one to come in if that was possible. So without further ado, let's go for the predictions then. Now, I'm not going to go through every single elimination, who would eliminate who. I'm going to go through, I think, will be the sole survivors and the winning team. I have Raw picking up the victory in this match, in my personal opinion. I have got 2, potentially 3, that will survive for the Raw women's team as the survivors. I think Bianca Belair is one I can see happening, unless Doudrop is to cost her spot in Survivor Series, but I really hope that doesn't happen. I can't see Rhea Ripley losing either, even though she's won half the women's tag team champions. Our other partner, Nikki Ash, is not here, but still, I think we need to start pushing Rhea Ripley towards the top end of the women's division once again. I think she could be a fresh challenger for Becky Lynch in and around WrestleMania season. And of course, Liv Morgan right now is someone that is going to be going for the championship, as she is the current #1 contender. So those are the 3 that I do think will be in and around there at the end of this Survivor Series match. I suppose if only 2 of them were to do it, then I suppose it would be Bianca and Liv Morgan. But yeah, I hope Rhea Ripley is in and around there towards the end as well. And I will say that the last member potentially of this other Survivor Series team, this is where it's going to be very interesting, because Sasha Banks and Shotzi have a rivalry going on. And even though I would predict that Sasha Banks usually would be the last one standing for this team, I've got a funny feeling that it could be the mystery person that could be the last one standing here, because I think Shotzi and Sasha are not going to get along, and I think that that could lead to Sasha's elimination fairly early in the match. I'm not going to say early in the match, but let's say fairly early in the encounter. So yeah, at this point now, Raw is up 3-2 over SmackDown. Last but not least, let's talk about the men's Survivor Series 5-on-5 elimination match. And this is where I'm going to be most critical in this entire video of a match that's been put together, because yes, once again, only names were announced on social media. This was how these teams were thrown together. But yet we've had multiple changes since then. Sami Zayn was supposed to be a part of the SmackDown team. He lost the match and got thrown off the team. Dominic Mysterio was announced on the team, then said, well, he wasn't a former world champion, then was destroyed by Lashley. Lashley took his place in the team. Then Rey Mysterio has been thrown off the team, even though he is a former world champion, and a non-former world champion in Austin Theory has taken his place. So let's go through the teams very quickly then. On the Raw side, we've got Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Austin Theory, and Bobby Lashley, taking on the SmackDown side of Drew McIntyre, King Woods, Happy Corbin, who I'm sure will be joined to the ringside by Madcap Moss, Jeff Hardy, and a mystery opponent. So once again, this could be interesting. Who would fill that spot for SmackDown for the Survivor Series match? I'm going to predict Sheamus. I'm not going to give many other names here. I think Sheamus would be one that would fit very nicely. He's someone that could go against this Raw team, and I think would do pretty well in doing so. So yeah, I think Sheamus is a good one. I think it's almost match to match with someone like Lashley on the other side. So yeah, I think then the teams would look pretty even. If you put someone like a newcomer in this spot, yeah, it's kind of fun for them to give them the opportunity, a potential breakout moment, but I would have less faith in the SmackDown team, so I'm going to go for Sheamus to be the one that will fill on the SmackDown side. As for then who is going to pick up the victory in this match now, first and foremost, can the Raw side trust Kevin Owens? We discussed this briefly earlier in the video. Well, we've got 4 heels on the Raw side, so Kevin doesn't really need to worry about that as much. It's only Finn Balor that seems to worry about it more than anybody. Yes, KO and Seth Rollins may not be seen fully eye to eye at this point, but I think for this match, potentially KO will do one of 2 things. I think potentially he's going to end up throwing the team away for Raw and SmackDown gets the victory, or I think he's going to cost Finn Balor the spot, and then I think he may even just walk away from the match himself. I think KO, we're going to see a very different heel side of KO, which potentially is coming down to the last remaining months of his contract. It'd be interesting to see what WWE does with him going away if he's not going to re-sign with the company. Now, to give how I think this match is going to go down, I think Raw is going to get the early advantage, but I think that SmackDown will find its way back in, and I do think that we're looking at potentially Xavier Woods or King Woods if you want, and Drew McIntyre being the last 2 potential ones there for the SmackDown team. Now, not predicting that that's going to be the finish, but I do think that Drew McIntyre will then go down to have to face maybe 2 combatants left, and I'm going to go Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley, and I think that Drew McIntyre will overcome the odds and get the victory for SmackDown. So yes, overall, I think Drew McIntyre will be the sole survivor in this one, and I have it down then at Raw 3, SmackDown 3 as the overall result of the evening. Now, of course, no kickoff match has been announced at the time of recording. I'm not sure if that even plays into the results either, but here's my reasoning of why I've gone for 3-3. Rather than actually having a victor of the 2 brands, I've gone for the draw. First and foremost, WWE has put less effort into Survivor Series this year, which makes a lot of people, I suppose, wonder if they care what or not's going to happen with the results. A lot of superstars are even saying they're not doing it for their brand, they're doing it for themselves. And I do wonder potentially if there would be some unrest or unhappiness with the TV networks, because of late there has been a bit of unrest, particularly with the draft, Fox and USA wanting to get who they could get on their shows. So I think WWE wants to avoid conflict, which is why I think they've gone for the draw here. So that's why I'm predicting it'll finish 3-3 rather than actually a 4-2 scenario. Now, that does lead the question, does this work for future Survivor Series going forward? Does Raw vs SmackDown actually work as a full-on pay-per-view? Now, many people are going to be saying no, and I think potentially I could agree, because what's on the line here for the winner? Before, many ideas have been suggested. How about the number 30 in the Royal Rumble spot for that brand? That's a very good prize that you could get at the end of it. What if the draft would not have been in October, it was actually in December, and the winner of winning brand gets the first 3 draft picks? And at that point then, you're not dealing, which is something we've not discussed in this video at all, with a number of talents who were on the other show just a few weeks ago. In fact, they are fighting for the show which they've been a part of for a full calendar year, which would make more sense going forward. Here's what I think. I think that we should continue with the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches, Raw versus SmackDown, but we should ditch the champion versus champion matches, and we go back to a format that we had sort of quite famously in the noughties. That was quite a famous time where we had, 2004, 2005, we had Team Raw versus Team SmackDown, but elsewhere through the show, we had championship matches going on with the top programs. So you have those ideas of the title being on the line. If you want to do something a little bit extra of Raw versus SmackDown, why not do a 2002? Why not bring in the Elimination Chamber? You can have 3 members of Raw, 3 members of SmackDown, and the winner of that Elimination Chamber match then gets a championship match of their show at the Royal Rumble. Yes, the Survivor Series then would definitely mean something. It would have a bit of narrative that would even link in to the build towards WrestleMania. Yes, it's long-term booking. Yes, it's something WWE is rumoured to not be overly famous for in the modern day of booking something 3 to 6 months in advance when it comes to the biggest show of shows. But I think it's something that would make most sense. So for me, I'd have 3 of these Raw versus SmackDown matches. The traditional Survivor Series for the men and the women. I then would have this Elimination Chamber match to get your number 1 contender for the Royal Rumble, so that way they haven't got to go through the Rumble match. They could potentially enter WrestleMania as champion, and then you'd have the rest of the card as normal matches. You could do potentially a Survivor Series match of the SmackDown stars or the Raw stars, or have something where you can have literally a couple of championship matches go throughout the evening, because then it just adds value, it adds importance, and I think at this point you'd stop this brand supremacy and you could just go to the fun factor of Raw versus SmackDown, should you still want to do that on Survivor Series going forward. But that's my thoughts on that. That's my match card. That's my predictions. There's been quite a lot in this video, but I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then please hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button as well if you haven't already. Hit the bell as well and turn the notifications to all so you know each and every time a video is released. Hope everybody enjoys Survivor Series, and remember, it's your turn now to let me know your predictions in the comments and how would you like to see Survivor Series booked for future years. Have a great time. Have a great day. Check out some of these other videos on your screen right now. You've been watching SCW on YouTube. All the best, and I will see you next time.